It's also quite a tease. You think it's preparing for the next chorus, but then nope! Hey everyone, my name is Christoph Jakob, I'm a music composer for video games, and today let's finally check out the one and only CALAMARI Inkantation 3MIX from Splatoon 3. I'd once again like to give you a little spoiler warning at this point. So in case you haven't finished Splatoon 3's single player campaign yet, it's probably best to come back to this video at a later point. Before we jump into CALAMARI Inkantation 3MIX though, let's actually take a look at the original rendition of this song first. I'm so familiar with the original version from Splatoon 1 that it would probably be kinda pointless to sit down and record myself reacting to it. So... The CALAMARI Inkantation is a recurring song performed by the idols of the original game, the Squid Sisters. In-game, it first appears during the final phase of the final boss fight against Octavio. It's worth noting that there's an iteration of this song in every single Splatoon game. And it's also referenced within the games pretty much everywhere. This alone already goes to show just how important this piece of music seems to be in the Splatoon universe. When the CALAMARI Inkantation is heard in-game, it's commonly referred to as that heavenly melody. And if you look at when this song plays in each game and what effect it has on the ones it reaches, then this expression seems to be a suitable description of that song. Let's try to find out if there's anything that makes this tune special musically and if the term heavenly melody is truly justified. Spoiler, it absolutely is. CALAMARI Inkantation is a fairly simple electronic style song. It's in a common 4/4 time signature that you hear all over music. Has a basic rhythm mainly consisting of a kick drum and a hi-hat, and overall has a strong focus on synths and vocals. The first Splatoon game is actually providing us with sheet music of the song, or at least its melody. We're in the key of E flat minor, and this entire phrase is 8 or 9 bars long, depending on whether you count the last note or not. In the song, the last note is usually omitted as the music directly jumps back to the start of the melody. It's also anything but common to hear a musical phrase that's 9 bars long. So that last note pretty much just serves as the final note once the music comes to an end. In case you're playing an instrument and you ever wanted to learn how to improvise, then you might notice something noteworthy about this melody. It's mainly based on notes from a so-called pentatonic scale. Simply put, a pentatonic scale, as the name already implies, consists of just 5 different notes. And regardless of which chord we're playing of the key that we're in, those 5 notes will always sound not wrong. Let me demonstrate. The fact that CALAMARI Inkantation focuses heavily on and around notes from the pentatonic scale kinda does make it heavenly to a degree. Taking a closer look at the music, the bass also emphasizes that by playing only those 5 notes which are outlining an E flat pentatonic scale, at least in the verse section. Now, obviously this wouldn't be Splatoon music if it didn't bend those rules here and there and build on them to make it musically more interesting than just sitting on the pentatonic scale the entire time. For most of the song, the chords that are being used are pretty much what you would expect under a melody like this. But then this part happens. Listening to the second half made me realize that Calamari Inkantation is not just that heavenly melody. I think calling it that heavenly harmony would be just as appropriate, given the juicy and colorful chords that are being introduced now, pretty much out of nowhere. Some of these colorful chords are really out there. But they don't strike us as out of place or weird at all, as we're already used to the melody by now, which is simply repeating the exact same thing we just heard. When I'm saying colorful chords, I'm pretty much referring to all chords that have a 7 or upper chord extensions in it. Chords that aren't just simple major and minor chords. Because of its mostly pentatonic melody, Calamari Inkantation is quite versatile. In the original, if you include the intro as well, we've heard 3 different chord progressions underneath it. I'm really looking forward to hearing what they've done to this song in Splatoon 3. Let's find out. Kick drum. Nice. That's a long intro. I can hear deep cut. Interesting. That is such a long intro. This was a surprisingly long intro. I like how the music starts with nothing but a kick drum that has reverb on it. And over time, this reverb becomes less and less, which as a result sounds as if the kick drum is slowly approaching you. Just by listening to the music alone, you could also hear that at one point, the idols of Splatoon 3 were introduced. Apart from that, the music is pretty much just slowly building up. Focus being the word slowly. The rhythm is different. Chords seem to be the same. The actual intro of this 3MIX sounds quite close to the original. There are some small changes to the chords though. In fact, it's borrowing the chords we heard in the second half of the chorus of the original tune. In the original, we were simply getting another cadence here, an iteration of A flat, B, E flat minor. Overall, it's also noticeable how the vocals are even more the focus of this tune than they already were in the original one. Instead of only getting a kick drum and a hi-hat, we're getting something that's rhythmically quite different. This kind of rhythm is apparently called tresillo. Personally, I just call it that lame Spanish type rhythm, because I don't really like it. Thankfully, they kept it more on the subtle side, and it's not as in your face as in 90% of pop music of the past decades. Nice choir. This was different. It's surprisingly close to the original though. The verse section of the 3MIX is mostly the same as in the original. It is a lot more busy though, due to the fact that they introduced a lot of new instruments. Due to the fact that more instruments are playing in this version. I've already mentioned that the rhythm section is completely different, but there's also a choir here now that was absent in the original. There is one change to the chords here as well, which is the build-up and transition to the chorus. I honestly much prefer this one to the original too. In Splatoon 1, we just had the cadence from the intro here, this A flat to B to E flat minor movement. In the 3MIX, we're getting something that's actually a little juicier than that. The music is going to this A flat to B movement as well, but it's a little earlier than you may expect. This movement is then followed by one of the most overused progressions in music. And why is it overused? Because it sounds amazing. I could bore you with more musical terms now, you know, this is a flat 6 to flat 7 to 1 movement, but I'm already talking too much about music theory, and this channel is not really meant to be about music theory. I do hope that you're familiar with this kind of sound though. To me, this progression sounds triumphant, heroic, and also a little epic. I'm a little disappointed that the chorus seems to be the same two chord progressions from the original with just one minor change. More instruments and a different rhythm. No need to change what ain't broken, I guess. Doesn't loop. No, doesn't loop yet. Or does it? I don't think it does. No, those are different lyrics. That was a nice fake out. Nice. The original Calamari Inkantation is actually quite short and would have looped by now already. Yet here we're actually getting a second verse as well, which is nice. The second verse is also quite a bit longer than the first one. There are multiple instances where the music is about to return to this triumphant, heroic and epic progression that I mentioned earlier, yet we're getting a fake out. The music is jumping back to E flat minor instead, while the verses keep going. To me, this actually sounds quite tense. It's also quite a tease. You think it's preparing for the next chorus, but then nope! The moment we finally do get to hear this heroic build-up fills me with so much relief. Nice. Okay, wow, what is happening here? Completely different chord progression. Very jazzy. Still doesn't loop, right? Now honestly, this was awesome. This is exactly the kind of thing I was hoping would happen. We're getting a brand new chord progression underneath that heavenly melody. And boy, that is a really good one. I honestly thought that the music was about to loop already, which would have been alright as well, but nope, we're getting something like this. I'm not 100% sure about all the jazzy chord extensions, but it sounds something like this to me. Very jazzy. Still doesn't loop, right? Nice. Half time. Man, this is long. Nice. In the final section of the 3MIX, we're greeted by a new rhythm with halftime feel. Simply put, the drums make it sound as if the entire tune had slowed down. Once more, we're getting an entirely new chord progression over the same melody. The composers really went all in here. And at the end it's just going up in whole tones until it repeats. I think it actually ends on a sus4 chord. No. To conclude, is that heavenly melody doing its name justice? I would say yes, simply because of how versatile it is. There's pretty much an infinite amount of chord progressions that you could use underneath this melody. I mean, it's not really infinite. We all know that infinite is something that only exists in maths. And in sonic forces. Thanks so much for watching. In case you haven't seen it yet, I've actually also made a video on the other final boss theme from Splatoon 3. You can check that out here. For more reaction and analysis videos, you can click here. And in case you'd like to hear my own little Splatoon inspired album, you can click here. See you next time.